Hey, everybody. I'm Dean Jackson. This guy's Joe Polish. And here we are. This is a very special, not simulcast, trimulcast podcast here, live in the World Headquarters studios. But this is going out to the I Love Marketing people, to our More Cheese Less Whiskers people, and to our listing agent lifestyle people. So we've got a trimulcast going on, but it's a very special thing if we're going to do a trimulcast.
Let me interrupt here, Dean. If I can also put this on my YouTube channel if it's any good.
So we could have a formal cast here if we play our cards right, but at least a trimulcast. So good to see you. It's been
you too?
Yeah. You're looking sexier than ever. You've got that look of a guy who just came off a sabbatical and finished a book.
Yeah, that exact look. You know, it's easy to spot those people in the world. They just kind of have. Yeah, and I shaved this morning, so I'm shaved. It doesn't
now,
look like you. Let me ask you
something. Do you put any? I know you got your back light there, your hair light, as they call it.
I'll put these lights on too. Here, I've got some lights in the background that no one can see. Let me see if I put them on. Hold on. Come on, there we go. That might light me up a little bit more.
Oh, what a difference. But now let me ask you, do you wear some matte finish head de-shiner, or is it just naturally matte finish like that?
No. I once in a while when I'm doing video at my office, right now I'm at my home, I will put often some powder on and things. Just,
but you live in Scottsdale, so there's no sweat anyway. The sweat is absorbed the moment it comes out of your pores. It's a dry heat.
Yeah.
So
I'm good.
I'm super excited because I'm proud of you. Your book is amazing. First, now I want to congratulate you on the title. First off, would you have a picture? You have the book you can hold. There it is. I
have a gallery of it. It's What's in it for them.
What's in it for them?
It says 9 genius networking principles to get what you want by helping others get what they want.
I love everything about that title. It's got
and the cover's Gaping Void.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's a good-looking title. I mean, good-looking cover. It's going to jump off of shelves. Everybody's going to see it, and it's a great question. I can't believe, actually, that nobody in all the history of time has ever named a book What's in it for them. And here you are solving the problem. Because you know why? You're one of the very few people that have that driving purpose of what's in it for them. Not many people, you live that. So not many people would think of that because they're constantly thinking about what's in it for me. That's how people name their books often, right?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you too, Scott Hoffman, my agent, this started several years ago because this book, I guess this must have been a little over 3 years ago when we first came up for the concept for it and trying to describe my behavior and what I do and how I think about approaching people and how I think about connection and connecting and getting what you want by focusing on other people. I mean, the Genius Network tool, I'm wearing a Genius Network shirt, right? You only see the part, which is kind of
just genius. It looks like that.
Yeah, it's cut off as a genius, as if I walk around with a shirt that just says genius on it. So we were talking about sort of how I emphasize that there's that Zig Ziglar famous line, which is you can get anything you want in life by helping enough other people get what they want. And the challenge with that is it's actually not true. It's true some of the time. If you focus on the right people and you give to givers, but if you give to takers, you can help them get what they want. And not only will they not do a damn thing for you, they'll abuse you. They'll take advantage of you. They'll steal from you. They will gaslight you. And so, you have to be a bit strategic and intelligent of pick up on not just the red flags, but the yellow flags.
Right.
And the yellow flags in people's behavior is, the thing to look out for. So when we were talking about this, Scott Hoffman, he actually helped me come up with the title, What's in it for them.
Well, let's congratulate Scott, because it is great. World class. It's one of the, I think it's got the longevity of how to win friends and influence people or think and grow like that. It's going to be for a long time. That's going to be a, durable title, I think.
That's exactly what I wanted. I
Yeah.
actually wanted to write a book that long after I'm gone,
Yeah.
even though I don't think my spiritual energy will exist for infinity. But whenever I'm gone, I want people to decades from now. Hopefully, that'd be
Yeah.
great to have a book that lives beyond 100 years,
Yeah.
right? And I wrote it that way. It's not a timely book. It's a timeless book, and there are principles that no matter what
Yeah.
technology changes, no matter what sort of AI or deep fakes or whatever happens, there's going to be human
This would be
connection. And
great. We've got,
yeah.
have you been you've been following all the deep fake stuff, right? Like the
I mean,
AI.
look, I'm a co-founder of a VR company,
Yeah.
so I mean, we're pretty involved in a lot of interesting things happening in the world with,
I'm
AI,
amazed by that.
VR.
But you remember, like when you and I first started the I Love Marketing podcast, our conversation leading up to it was, doing it for a record that's going to be like a long time. We actually had the conversation about, imagine if Claude Hopkins and Albert Lasker, two great marketers of the early 1900s, imagine if every week they got together and recorded a conversation about what they're doing in marketing and what's working for them, how valuable and interesting that would be to us, right? And I say that I always footnote it by saying, I'm not saying in any way that we're Claude Hopkins and Albert Lasker, but when you look at it, that 100 years from now, I mean, we're active marketers in the world, and we've made a lot of cool stuff that, looking back 100 years from now, it's going to be very interesting to people. I look at all those episodes we've done now of I Love Marketing, and, with the deep fake and AI and machine learning, if somebody programmed an AI to take in everything that we've said on all of those, hundreds and hundreds of hours of our thoughts on audio, and they could build a framework of how we might answer things or how we might think of things to say in our own voice with our own likeness. We might never have to, create another podcast again. People, they could take it, and what would Dean and Joe say, and do that whole thing. And that's why I'm excited to see where your VR stuff goes. I saw a thing on 60 Minutes where they were making this Holocaust experience, where they were in a room with so many cameras that were holographically recording Holocaust survivors and just telling their stories, answering questions for hours and hours, to create an experience where you could have a conversation with this Holocaust survivor and say, what was it like when you were growing up as a child? And you say that, and it would cue up what he said about when I was growing up as a child. So it feels like you're having the experience with them. It's amazing.
Yeah. No, totally. And that is what we are just seeing the tip of the iceberg, immersiveness and dialogue that most people can't even fathom where this is going to go and how it's going to be pieced all together. And it's fascinating. I mean, the reason I got interested in getting involved in VR was, Adam Ghazali back in 2014 was putting VR headsets on homeless people, and it was significantly reducing their stress levels. So most, tech in that sort of world is gaming or blood sports or sport. And when I say most, I mean, there's a lot of applications from surgeries and, I mean, you name it, the sky's the limit. But in terms of education, we really want to, I'm not a big fan of people staring at screens all day long. I mean,
Right.
you're not going to live you could live in that world, and many people do.
We
but
already
I'm
do,
not sure.
I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure. And what I mean, Dean, is of course we do. I mean, we're staring at screens all day long.
Yeah.
It's become part of life. But I mean, where you're literally living in a virtual world. The goal is not to do that. The goal is to utilize these things in enhancement. And part of this is dosage. And it's a bit of a catch-22 also, because I see some very dangerous applications of how people, utilize tech and utilize AI. And there's always a rationalization and a justification or a bit of positioning and posturing of what they're doing is somehow good or healthy. And, I often think about, as we forge the road ahead with the things we're doing, how do we keep it on that track that this is a connecting mechanism for people, not a disconnecting mechanism. We are, like Ned Hollowell, our friend for many years, we've had numerous conversations with him about this. We're more connected electronically than we ever have been in human history. We're more disconnected as humans. And you can look at that here. So if you at least approach the world in relationships, because what does anyone do that accomplishes anything meaningful that does not involve others?
Right.
The one commonality is you're going to involve other people. And so if you can dialogue or learn how to dialogue, like for instance, in VR, when we were growing up, we did not have, I remember when I was 10 years old, I would go out on a Saturday with a BB gun and I would walk these fields in Alpine, Texas for miles. Yeah. There was no cell phone. No one could get a hold of me. There was no pay phone.
Right.
There was no traffic. I mean, we're talking out in fields. If something happened to me, they would have had to send out, search helicopters and stuff. Yeah. I would go in nooks and crannies for just miles. And there's hardly any kid that lives like that in, unless you're in cultures where they still are not really, you're going to have to be in the middle of, like Africa or something in order to even experience some of these types of things. And what I mean by that is that, areas where there's still massive amounts of land, but we're not developed. But, in America, it's very rare that happens anymore, except maybe, in piecemeal here and there. But I mean, that was just a way of life. And so now that we're so, connected electronically, I mean, I watch people that never even go in stores anymore. They don't even go and check out. They don't use cash.
Nobody goes to the, I mean, you think about anything, this is where it is now, is that we can get anything that's physical that can be moved from where it actually is, can be at your house at the very latest tomorrow morning. If you want food, it could be at your house faster than you could go and get it. Anything you want. I mean, with Instacart, Grubhub, DoorDash, all of it, anything delivered right to you. We don't have to go anywhere. We don't even have to do any kind of connecting with people. It's sad, really. I was having a conversation with a good friend I grew up with yesterday, and we were talking about, just reminiscing about, what the world was like when you were off the grid kind of thing, and now it's so ingrained in us. I've been really trying and making a conscious effort to leave my phone a lot of the time, as much as I can do it. If I'm going to go and do some 50-minute focus finders or write in my journal or think that, even having the phone beside me is a distraction. You don't realize it until you don't have it with you, and how much richer a freedom experience it is.
Yeah, you've seen that meme where they show an old phone and they're like, when the phone used to have a cord attached to it, we had more freedom.
That's the truth. Yeah, exactly. I like it.
Well, let me say this for the topic of, the listener, the watcher, however someone's consuming this. If you don't go and do the reps of talking to other humans in the real world, there's something that ends up very much missing. I mean, half of my time is spent helping people that struggle with addiction. One of the biggest addictions is electronic addiction, because the constant built-in, there's a book that was written about gaming in Vegas, addiction by design. And tech companies design for addiction. They design for use. And they oftentimes will use words like build a community and all kinds of nice, words to disguise the ulterior motives of let's try to, suck people into never getting off and our devices and that sort of stuff. And the funny thing too, I just said I needed to fill in that line, never getting off, because it sounded kind of weird. But, as I think about it, if you never get off, you're always searching for, when am I going to hit it? When am I going to have the buzz? When am I going to have that moment of, where I feel satiated?
Yeah.
And if you keep people in a state of never feeling satiated, they keep consuming, they keep watching, they're glopped in front of the screen. They're glopped in front of whatever that sight, sound, a taste, touch, whatever. You can't eat just one potato chip sort of thing, right? And it's like, if you keep people in a constant state of craving, then they'll quote unquote keep consuming your stuff. But at what cost? At what point does that actually help somebody when, they just can never walk away and they're always feeling like they're jonesing? Like when I was a cocaine addict, the term jonesing, that constant craving. So, I look at everything through the lens of addiction, because there's a lot that can be said about that miserable, suffering, intolerable, craving state, and trying to feed something that never comes with fulfillment. And the more you feed it, the hungrier it gets.
Yeah.
And that is what I strive to actually help people connect with themselves first, because if you're not connected with yourself, it's very difficult to connect with other people. And to not bullshit yourself and to not show up with an agenda thinking that, your thing, your glop, your product, your service, your intentions are always the right thing for the other person. Oftentimes they are. And, any person that's a real caring, value creating, contributing, helpful human that produces results, not a thought leader, but a result leader, they show up most of the time with that sort of intention, but your actions need to follow your intentions. That whole thing about people judge themselves by their intentions, they judge others by their actions.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure your actions are congruent with your intentions. And you have to live in the real world, and now the question is, what's the real world, right? What is the real world? How do you design life that gets you what you want by helping other people get what they want? And there are often times where, and I break this down in the book. I mean, some of this is context. You could be a parent and have, a child that just wants candy, and you're not going to be helping that child by giving that child what they want.
Right.
All they want to eat is candy, right?
Yes.
You have to, our friend Michael Burnock, he talks about food as there's addiction, there's entertainment, and there's nourishment, right?
Right.
So is the food you're eating, nutrition? Is it entertainment, or is it addiction? And so what you're selling, if what you're selling is nutrition, it really helps people, because there are a lot of things that people want that aren't good for them. And there are things that they want that are good for them. And there are ways to make money exploiting people and selling stuff that really doesn't do much for people, and in many cases is harmful and dangerous. And there's other things that are really beneficial. So my whole thing is, if you want to go to bed at night, and even if you have trouble with insomnia, and there's other reasons for that, if you want to sleep at night, metaphorically feeling like you are doing good in the world, the emphasis is on, changing the positioning of how you approach people with what's in it for them. Asking that question, what's in it for them? That often requires observing, asking them questions, getting in dialogue, and sometimes getting in dialogue and relationship long enough that what they say they want versus what they really want and what they really need, being facilitated if you can. And that's not to mean that everyone in the world needs to be working on transformational stuff. I mean, oftentimes someone just, needs to pick up a screwdriver, right? And they need to go to Ace Hardware or something, that they need to pick up, a hinge for a door, So, however, the thing is, if I look at my life, everything that the greatest relationships that I got have all come from the emphasis on what's in it for them. And, people always ask me, how do you meet people? Well, for one, I love opportunity, but there's a big difference between pursuing an opportunity and being an opportunist.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between really connecting with people and connecting with people, where you connect with them by conning them. And marketing, which me and you have spent decades studying, both of us now, it literally is 30 years. You know, I mean, I first learned about direct response in 1992. That's when I read my first Gary Halbert letter.
Yeah.
I've been at this for a long time. I mean, I've spent and made tens of millions of dollars, and I've helped my clients make hundreds of millions and in the billions of dollars range. I mean, you know, you invented the squeeze page back in 1997. That has, you know, the ripple effect, the domino effect of that. Because I talk about every chapter of what's in it for them. I end it with the dominoes.
I loved that. I was going to ask you about that because that, it was really, the book is really well organized, really well laid out. I finally finished it, by the way. I didn't finish it in time to do and I love this is something that says a lot about you, actually, that every endorsement on the book is written only by people who've read the entire book. And of course, so I didn't finish the book before the deadline for endorsements. So you would think that I would have an endorsement of the thing, and I 100% endorse it. But it's my own thing that I wasn't able to finish the book before doing it. But it's, you know, and that level of integrity, because so many endorsements, people just go and get these celebrity endorsements of things, and they've never even seen the book. They just send over the blurb of this is a life-changing book. Joe polishes this, but and you can tell just in the people that have done it, that it's authentic. And that's something that, you know, that's part of the attraction, I think, of the length of the relationship that we've had is one of those things that I know you're 100% authentic, and you know that about me. That's we are who we are, and 100%.
Yeah, no, and you know, like speaking to that, I wanted to make a point because almost all books written that are bestsellers, that are filled with blurbs and testimonials from famous people, the people haven't even read the book. And so they're getting the blurbs in order to help with the marketing of the book. But if someone's not reading the book, and here's the reason too, people constantly ask me to write testimonials of their book.
Me too,
And I'm like, if I haven't read the book, I can't write a testimonial. If you want me to if I know you and you want me to write a character testimonial, or if there's something specific to something the book is about that I have experienced and done myself that I could speak to, that's one thing. But I'm not going to pretend that I have read your book if I've not read your book, because it's not authentic. It's not real. And I also want people to think about this themselves. I'm not writing – this is not just like, oh, Joe's some angel here sort of thing. I would like to think I'm angelic, but nonetheless, you know, it's the right thing to do. And if you start presenting yourself into the bullshittery of what almost everyone does. See, the problem with all these marketers, and when I say all these marketers, I mean, believe me, we have a podcast called I Love Marketing. We love marketing.
Yeah.
The problem with when it's used wrong is they sit and they cut corners, or they start stealing everyone's shit, and they start, you know, they start hacking this and hacking that, and they start, you know, S&D, steal and distribute, swipe and deploy, and they start crossing the line. And then all of a sudden, you know, they don't have a relationship with someone, but they're plagiarizing their stuff, or they do have a relationship with the person and they're plagiarizing their stuff, and they don't ask for permission, and they take, and they, you know, it's like if I came over your house and started taking a couple of forks and a couple of knives every time I visited, and I just, you know, me and Dean have been friends for 30 years. You know, I see a couple of books on his bookshelf. I'm over his house. I'm just going to stick these in my backpack, and I'm going to walk out with them. Or, you know, like that Mont Blanc pen that Dean has sitting on his desk. You know, he makes money. He's not going to miss that. And, you know, I'm just going to take that. And if he asks for it, I'll say, oh, yeah, I took it. I thought it was okay. You'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? So, but what happens is people do this with other people's ideas. And they start cutting corners. And then they assure each other. They get together in mastermind groups, or they get together in seminars, and they all sit around together doing show and tell, assuring each other that how they stole this idea from this person. It's one thing to model something, and you know, that's where you understand like my friend JR says, you know, for those that get it, no explanation is needed. For those that don't, no explanation will do.
Right.
When you have to actually explain certain things to people that you're being unethical or you're being stupid,
right?
it's like there's a point where that is not what I call, and I write about this extensively, an elf relationship, easy, lucrative, and fun, versus a half relationship, hard,
Yeah.
annoying, lame, and and that comes in many forms. See, one thing too is there is a lot of games that are playing life, and if you don't want to play the game, you may not want to show up in certain things
Yeah.
because there's just a lot of game playing. There's a lot of politics. You got to learn how to navigate it. Some of this kind of stuff.
You got to know who you got to know what you're dealing with too. Like you and I, we've talked about this before, but the idea of sharks and mammals. And that there's a lot of in marketing and in business world, there's a lot of sharks, and
Right.
Which is very different than mammals. And that it's a whole thing. I think you and I kind of gravitate to mammals. That that's where we're building real relationship with people.
Yeah, and and in order to have good people in your life, you think it would be obvious that you want to be a good person. There's a lot of people that just bitch continuously about how people are screwing them.
Yeah.
And there are really good people that get screwed. I mean, both you and I, there's not a single person walking around that has not been taken advantage of. So let me obviously clarify that. There's a lot of people, though, that are constantly complaining about how mischievous people are, that they themselves are the biggest they're mischievous themselves. Some are just outright criminal con artists that present themselves as anything but, and they don't see it. So the thing is, people have their own value systems, right? I recently saw Chris Rock did a show here live, which is funny, and they took everyone's phone and they put it in a little case. So, because he's talking about Will Smith.
I was going to say, was it post Will Smith?
Oh, yeah. No, this was like literally, like a week ago.
Oh, that's great.
And so, yeah. And, there was a thing years ago, though, where he did where he's talking about, a crack addict isn't, dating someone that's not a crack addict. There's not a crack addict, and then you have someone, that you're married to in a waking up at 5 a.m, putting on the 3-piece suit and going to work. No, you're hanging out with other crackheads,
Yeah.
And so the thing is, Bonnie and Clyde found each other, right? There are people, it doesn't matter. Like, everyone finds kind of their people. And, the thing is, be careful, who you believe and what, watch people's actions, I mean, isn't what has been going on the last couple of years with the pandemic and all of the propaganda and all of the bullshit and the government and big tech companies and all of the gaslighting that has been going on, from pharmaceuticals to central banking to, all the things. And I'm not going to turn this into, a full-blown political thing in case you're worried. What I'm pointing out is, if you look at the level of deception under the guise of we care about you, that's being perpetrated on humanity, and history is repeating itself in many ways. What has not been able to be done in history, though, is the level of fear porn being pumped out into the world at scale. Because of tech, you could never as quickly do today what you can do today could not have been done during, the 40s or the 50s or the 60s or the 70s or the 80s or the 90s.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a new form of accelerated, exponential fear porn.
Yeah.
And so much stuff, and it's just the most clever modern day use of, a brilliant but basically evil human like Ed.
Well, it'd be used
for days using propaganda.
Oh,
today.
Propaganda, exactly. But it can be used because everybody has a megaphone now. Everybody's got a voice, and there's no middlemen. There's no stopping it. And everybody's got the technology to make things appear official and appear like as good quality as any broadcast television or official communication channel. Yeah. And so there's nobody stopping, anybody getting their views out there. And so it's up to us to filter that out through our own values system. And that's where a lot of people are struggling with that, because through our entire lives, there's been somebody else deciding what we're exposed to. and now there's this addiction of now you can go deeper on any of the crazy conspiracy theories that you want to explore. You can build, there's so much evidence to build any sort of view that you have. So, but it's also amazing in that it's truly becoming a meritocracy for the good ideas and helpful ideas and most entertaining things to rise to the top too. Like you look at everybody, who wouldn't otherwise have a voice, but you're seeing it now in music, in entertainment, in everything. People with an idea, with a vision are able to get that out to the world, and the world's saying, that's great. And then it expands and spreads. It's so much easier to spread both good and bad through that same channel.
Without doubt. Like when I was saying the first domino, there are first dominoes that will put your life into a trajectory of pain and suffering. I mean, I became an addict in a lot of ways because of some defining moments of trauma that there was no way for me to deal with at the time. So later in life, those tested as addictions, and an addiction is just an attempt to, solve and soothe a pain. Like my friend Gabor Mate says, the question's not why the addiction, but why the pain. And so I look for pain. I look for pain in my life, pain in other people's lives. And if I can eliminate or reduce or change or reframe the pain, because pain is also a messenger. And what is often hard and took me a while to figure out is that the pain in the world, the pain in lives, the pain in the marketplace, if you can find a solution, not a Band-Aid, but a real solution. And oftentimes a Band-Aid is a solution in the moment, right? Some people's pains, like, I spend a lot of time with people that struggle with addiction, and some people, they're going to die. They're just suffering. And so sometimes the best you can do is just sit with them, be a companion to them, talk to them, listen to them, do what you can. Other times you can help people get out of the trap of their own lives by sharing, your own experience, strength, and hope with them. Because hope delivered in the right way can heal. Hope heals. Hope delivered in a bullshit way is actually quite destructive, because hope is often a terrible strategy if it's false hope. So there's different ways there are negative ways of utilizing hope and positive ways of utilizing hope. But the thing is, almost all money is made by solving problems for a profit, right? And so my whole thing is identify the pain, become a pain detective. And as you do that, you become actually more aware of the pain in your own life. And, and I think if you can go through the day and you can identify the pains that people have and offer them ways to remove it, eliminate it, get out of it, walk away from it. If someone's bashing themselves, metaphorically speaking, bashing themselves in the head with a hammer 10 times a day, and you can get them to do it 8 times a day, that's better than 10.
That's a reduction in suffering.
And if you can eventually get them to quit hitting themselves in the head with a hammer, and oftentimes that doesn't come by telling them to quit hitting themselves in the head with a hammer.
Right.
I talk about that video, about the woman with the nail in her head.
Tell me.
Well, it's not about the nail. There's a video on YouTube that, she literally has a nail protruding out of her head, and she's talking with her partner, and the nail keeps, hitting him in the head when they get close. And she just wants to talk. And he's like, well, you got a nail in your head. And she's like, we always want to try to. And, so he sits back and he talks and listens. And finally he's like, because she's like, it hurts and it's like snag my sweaters and everything.
Yeah.
Oftentimes you have to enroll people in interesting ways. And part of that comes from having rapport. Like right after in a few minutes, that's why I have a limited amount of time today for us to do this. What will be the first version of a conversation about this book. Because what I want to do, Dean, especially for the people on our marketing podcast, is as this book launches, I want them to see the things that I'm doing and how they're doing it, because if they ever write a book, it would be a good idea for them to see some of the things that we're doing and that I'm doing with this book from a marketing standpoint. So the primary marketing for what's in it for them is a book that I hope once it's out in the wild, people will like it enough to tell other people about it. I wrote the book so the marketing is built in, even if I don't spend a penny on marketing, that I wrote a book in that sort of way. But anyway, the point is we're going to have conversations about different levels of this, not the content of the book. I mean, hopefully people will read the book, they'll like the book, the content and what I write about will speak for itself. But I'm having a conversation with our buddy Neil Strauss, who's written numerous, New York Times bestsellers. And, he has a line that I write about in the book that came out of, I don't know if it was The Game or what, because I helped him with his book, The Truth, on the stuff related to addiction in that book.
Yeah.
And he wrote that 10 years after he wrote The Game, so he had this crazy ass life and, he had to go through all of his lessons and learnings and ups and downs and everything like that. And he wrote a much different book 10 years later, but it's rapport, and rapport is trust with comfort, where you don't just trust somebody, but you're comfortable. And so I'm going to have a whole conversation with Neil about connection and about rapport and about trust and about, whatever we end up talking about, which could talk about the pickup world, or it could talk about bonding and connecting. And, that's going to be literally, and that is something that in the book, we talk about different subjects and different people, because I'm very big on acknowledging and edifying where ideas come from. A huge respecter of people's IP and people's ideas. And my goal is to encourage people to give credit where credit is due.
Right.
Don't take something that you learned from somebody else and present it as your own. Now, if you create your own ideas and your own innovations and stuff, great. But I don't think it takes anything away from your message.
No, and it doesn't. It's almost like the opposite too, because if you don't, especially if it's an idea that's an established thing out in the world, like I can't tell you how many times people tag me in a comment of something where somebody's talking about this 9-word email that they've got to revive dead leads, and they're expressing it like, here's what I did was we tried this, and without fail everybody in the comments will say, oh yeah, that's Dean Jackson's 9-word email, or what. And it's so funny to just see when people are trying to not try and push something off as an original thought.
And let me point this out too. Yeah, and no, you're right. And I'll tell you, if you're a empathetic, caring person, and I would like to think both of us are, me way more than you probably, but no, I'm kidding. It actually it hurts. It's bothersome, right? And I write about in the book a conversation I had with Gary Chapman, years ago. He's the one that wrote the 5 Love Languages. Talking with him years ago after an event. And he said to me that if you want to know what somebody's love languages are, listen to what they complain about. Because within complaints, people are crying out for help, attention. They're venting.
Yeah.
They're literally telling you what it is that is important to them.
Yeah.
Oftentimes. Now, I mean, they're like seriously crazy, toxic, criticizing people that are just, they don't want to solve anything. They just want to, complain. However, people don't view complaining and ranting oftentimes as the fuel that it can be. And when someone takes your 9-word email, and there has been God knows how many hundreds of people that will learn that, and they will never give you credit. And it's great when you have an army of people that will stick up for you, because we both have that. Dan Sullivan has that, right?
Yes.
Where he's got certain IP and people will violate it, they'll take it. And, the fact is, usually his clients and people that know him will come and say, no, that's not your thing. That's Dan's, right?
Right.
He'll do that for me. And that's how we end up finding out about it, and when people start telling you that other people are stealing your stuff, it actually shows that you've at least created some marketplace, capital,
Well,
right?
I was going to say capital. That's a funny thing that equity is what I was going to say. You've built some equity in people's minds that there's something, it's always this balance, right? That no matter what, we're in everything we do in business, commerce, capitalism is an exchange, right? Of goods and services for money. That's really how it's all happening. And the goods and services, hopefully, are in exchange for results. That's really what it's about. Nobody's just buying the goods and services without an intention of it creating a result. So if you just can focus on, that's what I love about what's in it for them. If you can just focus on what's the actual outcome that they're trying to create and wrap your goods and services around helping get that outcome. And preferably, if you can get it for them in advance. We have to talk about that. One of my favorite questions to ask is, what would you do if you only got paid if they get the result? And that's really from that mindset of thinking. I don't know whether I've shared with you the idea of the receiving dock versus the purchasing department. That's been a thought that I've had a lot lately, is that most people are approaching businesses or people who they want to sell their stuff. They're going to the purchasing department and say, hey, buy my stuff. Give me a purchase order for this stuff, and maybe I'll deliver the goods to you after I get the money. And you're in line with everybody else that's competing for those available dollars or resources that people have to buy stuff to get the result. But what I discovered is, if you metaphorically approach a business from the receiving dock, there's nobody stopping you, because every single person in any business is 100% authorized and desirous of bringing good things into the business. So if you could just start with that, if you've got the capability to deliver an outcome for people, and you just start doing it and get that outcome, then, for the right people, as you said, the people who are, you got to have that discernment of knowing that this person is really someone who, is ethical and is worthy of providing that kind of arrangement with. But that's where I believe you can have anything you want. That's what Zig Ziglar was talking about. Exactly that you can help, if you help enough other people get what they want. It's not about promoting yourself more and getting out there with a thing, but the actual ability to deliver what they actually want.
Oh, yeah. And part of it is, I don't want a group of people that I somehow am postured in position like I am the smartest one and these are all my students and followers and all that sort of nonsense. I have built a whole business for years now with people that are, in many cases, more financially successful than me, more capable in so many different areas than I am, because, that's what a genius network is.
Yeah.
A genius network is a network of people with different capabilities that come together and they collaborate. And I focus those efforts on industry transformers. I focus those efforts on givers. I do believe I have, it started out as a mastermind group. It's not a mastermind group.
I remember when it was, I remember we would do, me and you and Eben and John Carlton and Craig in your boardroom there, just brainstorming, info marketing stuff. That's the genesis of it all, right? I mean, yeah, amazing. That's 25 years ago, 1997, we started doing those kind of things.
What's funny is I always used to bring people, like Brian Tracy and different people together at my office, and it was just these one-off things. No one was paying anything for it, and then everyone loved it, right? And I would bring people down to, Key West and hang out in Miami with, Gary Halbert back in the 90s. and everyone would love it. And they would be like, when are we going to do another one of those meetings? And it eventually dawned on me that, maybe I should formalize this and maybe I should make it more consistent. And that's what ended up becoming Genius Network. I mean, Genius Network originally was the Genius Network interview series.
I remember.
It was literally interviewing people on cassette tape
Yes.
and sending out a cassette tape along with a transcript. And I did my first interview, and it wasn't even called Genius Network back then. That's when it was like, I was in my 20s, and, when you're young and kind of crazy and insane, it was the Joe Polish Superstar Audio Tape of the Month program, which, thinking about it now, sounds so kind of arrogant in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It wasn't. I mean, it wasn't me. It was me interviewing people smarter than me and sharing those interviews with people. And that was before podcasts. And people used to pay money to receive a cassette tape.
$18.52 a month. 53 cents a month. Yeah.
And then when I turned it to the Genius Network interview series, we moved it to $29.95 a month. And then eventually went from cassette to CD.
Yeah.
And we would send CD and then the transcript. And then I would have a hot tip sheet where it was the best ideas from the interview. And then, the very first podcast I ever recorded was with Alex Mendozian in 2005, when no one even knew what a podcast was. And then me and you started our podcast in 2010. And I think like a year or two before that, you were doing Marketing Mondays.
I started in 2005. 2005, I started Marketing Monday. Yeah.
What, the podcast did?
Yeah. Yeah. Marketing Monday. When I started Marketing Monday, this is how far it goes back, that I believe there were only 500 podcasts. And the way that they were organized in the iTunes, the podcast area, was they were you could sort them by alphabetic, by category, and by popularity, right? And so I worked out how to game the system. So I had mine was dash 10 real estate marketing ideas in 10 minutes dash. And then Marketing Monday was the name of the podcast. So it was alphabetical. It would always come up at the top. Then because people were seeing it and it had marketing in the, both in the title and in the thing, it was content related, it would come up. And then that would gain the popularity because of more people were watching it. So now any way you looked at it, I was up there. That was what gained all the momentum initially. But yeah, that's, it's so funny when you start to think about, being early adopters on things.
Well, I mean, I think, and so for the point of the people listening to this, think of anything that is worth doing, putting information, putting knowledge out in the world. Like one of the conversations I would have continuously with Gary Halbert is there's three things you need in order to sell something. You need a product or service, you need a sales pitch or a marketing message, and you need a delivery system. And so how do you deliver stuff out into the world? And what's the difference between giving something away for free versus charging a fee? And so even, like, for instance, this book, people will buy this book. What's in it for them? I also have a website, Joe's Free Book. And when someone goes to Joe's Free Book, they can download my other book, which is called Life Gives to the Giver. And it's not it doesn't put people into an upsell where they have to buy other stuff in order to get something good. I actually give away a really good book.
Yeah.
And people opt into my list, and then we send them emails. And if they like the short emails that I write, then, and using the super signature, which is the bottom of the email, which is a marketing idea and strategy that came from you that we've actually done podcasts on, which is a really good way to do emails, then, I will bond with them. And if I bond with them, they will start looking at other things that I offer. And then the main thing I offer is Genius Network, but most people cannot afford Genius Network if they're not doing $1 million plus a year, because that's the, at least the financial criteria to join Genius Network, and that's only one part of the criteria.
I just thought we should set up the Genius Network to get people into the Genius Network. That's
actually, just with my ADD brain, I could totally go down a path with that one, but we could definitely discuss it. The Genius Network, yeah. But the thing is, though, even that model is what's in it for them, right? It's giving value in advance. It's giving something that will benefit people and letting them determine if it's useful to them before they even have to give me any money.
Well, that's marketing. I love marketing. Perfect example of that we both started the podcast with no intention or plan for monetizing it formally, but literally we launched at Christmas. By February or March, people were demanding that we sell them something. That was why we did the first big I Love Marketing event, because people felt dissonance about the...
Yeah, and here's the thing too, and in this entire time, and maybe this is a really dumb thing to say, there's never been a sponsor, there's never been any money taken from anyone to promote them. It literally has been a pure give it away for free value play for two reasons. One, we genuinely like helping people. We like putting good ideas out in the world. I mean, it comes from a really good, genuine place. And secondly, it allows us to flesh out different ideas, share stuff. I mean, we're both wired to pontificate, different thoughts and ideas, mostly marketing, but all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And it's a rapport builder. I could say third, fourth, fifth, and all the other benefits that come out of it. And what's even funny, and I've been talking about this more and more, is I can't tell you how many famous podcasters do a podcast because they're too arrogant or self-centered to actually go to a therapist. So their own therapy, they have to do their own podcast and interview all these therapists and all of these people about different stuff because it allows them to at least position themselves as experts. And everyone that's doing a podcast, and truth be told, is doing their own form of therapy in a lot of ways. It's just some will tell you that and others won't. They hide behind how smart they are. And so if you want to know what someone's grappling with in their life or what they're interested in, just what the hell are they writing
podcast is about? Yeah.
Yeah. What are they doing? What are they speaking about? It doesn't apply to podcasts. It applies to everything. I'm writing about what's in this book and all this stuff because I'm interested in it, right? I want to get better at it. And it's an effective way to teach people. Teaching people stuff is a wonderful way to get better at it. So, Dean, I have a limited.
I know. Yeah. This is great. Time flies.
What is the last thing you would like me to talk about or say or anything?
Well, let's, I think this was great. It was good to get back together doing a podcast like this, just having the conversation. I think the next thing that we could do is let's do a pure brainstorm call about getting the word out about the book so that people can see, like, almost like just forget about that we're recording it, but do it like just as we would have a conversation to brainstorm, what to do about the book to get it out there. So I think that could be a good follow-up one for us to do.
Yeah. We'll talk about the marketing of the book. And if people, there's a website, which is WFT, what's in it for them, WFTbook.com. If anyone wants to pre-order the book, that would be wonderful. I would not be opposed to that at all.
Me neither.
You can get it. You can pre-order it. The book actually comes out November 1st, 2022, depending on when you hear this or watch this episode. And I also, one of the marketing things I did, and it cost me a lot of money. I literally paid $18,000 for the website, What's In It For Them. But I wanted the name. I wanted to own the name, what'sinitforthem.com. Yeah. And so we're waiting, as we're doing this, we're waiting for that domain over. And then we will, probably redirect things to that unless I set up something differently. But if you want to see the marketing that I'm doing and how, because so many great people have read the book. I've got amazing, one of my favorite authors in the world, Stephen Pressfield, gave me a glowing testimonial on the book, and so did Robert Cialdini and B.J. Fogg and Chris Voss and Vern Harnish, said it's one of the best books he's read in the last decade. And so I just hope that people that don't know me actually respond even a little bit like the people that have.
Well, now that I've finished it. So now that I've finished it, I missed the deadline for being on the actual book, but I can write an Amazon review. I might be the first Amazon review on there. That'll be a good.
That would be great. And if people read it, they
5
like
stars.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing too. We can put you on the website because we can put you on the but I'm not using a single testimonial from someone that's not read the whole book.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things. And I'm not just doing that because I think it's the right thing to do. I want other people to follow suit. I really, this book is written for givers to protect themselves from takers and how to facilitate being a giver, how to be more of a giver. I believe it's not a book just on capabilities. You'll learn a ton of capabilities. It's a book on character. It's really a book on building your character.
So do I have enough pull to get one of the galley copies?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I'm up there still. That's good.
Cool. All right, Dean. Well, as usual, it's been fun. And to everyone out there watching and listening, I wish you all well. And today, ask the question, anyone you meet or interact with for business or for just fun, ask what's in it for them.
Awesome.
And see where your brain goes. And I guarantee you, if you want to deepen and build your relationships, it's not about winning friends and influencing people. It's winning the right friends and influencing the right people. And I literally bow to Dale Carnegie because of that book. He allowed me to write another book that I think will enhance that. And I think everyone needs to read, if they haven't already, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And if you have, you're going to love what's in it for them, because it is just a whole nother approach on how to build relationships.
I love it. Well, say hi to our friend Neil, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, bye.